R. Mole and Sons. There's 2-1L 21st Lancers. Okay, everybody, I hope you're doing well. Today is a very cool video for a very cool sword. This is a British 1885 pattern Cavalry Trooper Saber. This is a very stout blade, a historical blade because it was used by the British cavalry regiments in Egypt, in Sudan, and in the Boer Wars in South Africa. So, very, very cool historic sword. This particular one was issued and is service sharpened. It has some edge damage along the false edge here, just a little nick, and then a lot of damage on the guard and along the ricasso. A lot of slashing marks here, and a few stabbing marks, and a slash mark along the back. Some of these markings on this hilt guard are pretty faded out, so it's hard to pick up on a couple of them. There was a rust patch that I kind of cleaned off a little bit, and it had 2-1L, which puts this in the assignment of the 21st Lancers. And they're a very famous regiment in the British cavalry circles. So I'll talk about that later, though. Sorry, there's a flyer around me. This sword, aside from being service sharpened, somebody has replaced the handle scales. So this type of sword, the 1853, the 1864, 1882, and 1885 and 1890s are full width tangs, meaning they're sort of built like a messer, where the tang is very thick. It's the same width as the grip. The grip scales are riveted on. Originally it would have been stacked leather with cross hatching and nickel-plated steel rivets. Somebody, perhaps the descendant of a cavalryman, replaced these, but these wood grips look about as old as the sword does. They're very old. They have some wear. So in any case, these are very stout blades. They were nickel plated from the ricasso down, so you can see some of the nickel plating still to help with corrosion resistance on the pommel there and on the front strap. These are notably different from the 1853, from the earlier full width tang designs, in that they have this little comfortable kick out for pinkies. 1853s especially were noted for being very uncomfortable in thrusts, because it was just a 90-degree angle from the grip to the guard, and it has adopted the ambidextrous sort of shell guard or bowl guard from the 1864 pattern. It features a very beautiful Maltese cross piercing, which I really love. So yeah, this sword has been polished because that engraving is almost invisible if you don't look at it in the sunlight. But once you see it, it says, you know, R. Mole and Sons, Birmingham. So this is made by Robert Mole, and it was made in November 18. either 86 or 88. Again, that number, the second number in the 80s, is worn off, so I can't really make it out. I think it's 86. So it's a second year production, and then it was reissued, refurbished and reissued in May of 1889. So it has a number of brigades assigned to it, listed on this blade. There's a 30th on this one as well. It's just it's faded and polished off, which is a shame. But it does have 21st Lancers on the guard. Now I don't know if this was used during the Battle of Omdurman. I doubt it. It might have been. I don't know. I believe those guys in 21st Lancers may have been, because that was 1898. So if you don't know, Battle of Omdurman was in the British campaign to subdue Sudan. It was some M word for it. Anyways, there's an Islamic Caliphate type state seizing, trying to seize power in Sudan, and the British were trying to install their own westernized sort of puppet government in the region. And so a battle took place at Omdurman, in which there's a famous cavalry charge by men wielding swords very similar to this one, in the 21st Lancers. They were on the southern flank of the battle, and they were clearing out resistance from a group of a couple hundred Sudanese dervish riflemen. They crested a hill, and on the other side of the hill were hidden about 2,500 sword and spear wielding dervishes in a depression. And by that time they realized what they were running into. It was too late. Their cavalry charge went full gallop into the line of spears and swords. Many of the cavalry troopers made it out the other side, but a large group were stuck in the middle of the melee. A great number were pulled off their swords and hacked apart, or pulled off their horses and hacked apart. A good number of the 21st Lancers actually went back into the melee and tried to recover their comrades. And as a result of that, 3 of the British received Victoria Crosses from their actions. And famously, Winston Churchill was at the Battle of Omdurman. And he was noted for having put away his sword and pulled out his Mauser pistol to use on the enemy, because he had a famous shoulder injury that he couldn't hardly swing a sword with. So before that, the 21st Lancers were fairly new, and they were unblooded. This was basically their first ever cavalry charge, and it ended up being one of the last cavalry charges in the world as far as Western British cavalry units. At least one of the last successful ones. It was considered a success because after the charge, the Sudanese withdrew out of that portion of the battle, and eventually withdrew out of the Battle of Omdurman altogether. So the British, out of their, I don't remember how many, they lost about 26 men during the cavalry charge at Omdurman. It's the charge of the 21st Lancers. You can look it up. But they used swords pretty much exactly like this. Possibly this was there. I don't know. So, again, this one has it's fairly stiff. I don't want to bend it too much because I don't like bending old swords, even though it's a spring. I'm glad somebody replaced the handles, because originally, like I said, these would have been leather scale handles, but somebody very cleverly put the right size handles on. This would have originally had the leather here, and then it would have been leather washer, but I'm not bothered by it. I think it's a very handsome addition. Wood and steel together are very, very beautiful. And this is a collection piece. I don't plan on doing a lot of cutting with it or anything like that. I just am happy to have it. It's a historic piece, and I respect the craftsmanship. My thoughts on the sword are that I believe it is one of the best cavalry sabers, one of the best swords ever made. I really like the fact that it's a full width tang. I think that's a very good idea, a solid idea. I like the blade. how it's gently curved and it has a spear point. I think that's excellent. It's a good compromise, so you can do a lot of good cutting and some fearsome thrusting with it. Um, the it's basically between as far as Western swords go, it's a tie between this type of sword with the full width tang, whether it's the 1853, which I have a really good reproduction of the 1853 saber. I'll do a video on that, and I'll compare it with this. Um, it's like a 1075 carbon steel reproduction of a 1853, which is essentially this sword minus the kick out here, and it has a 3-bar hilt. They were used by the British for a very long time, and actually by the Confederates here in the United States during our Civil War. But between these type of full width tang hilt swords and the French infantry 1845 sword, those two, which I have one as well, I'll make a video on that too. Those are my favorite type of Western swords, and I say Western meaning I'm discounting like Nihonto Japanese swords or swords from Indonesia or anywhere else. I mean Western European style swords or American swords. This and the French 1845 infantry sword, those are my two favorite swords. Pretty much ever. I love sabers, and this to me, it just takes the cake. So that's it as far as this sword. There's not much else to say. I don't know who this was attributed to. I don't know. I mean, I know the regiments and the brigades and all that. I don't know who used this sword or who this sword belonged to, because there's no identifying markers other than the regiment and the brigades. So I could research that, but it would just tell me, what I already can see. So, yeah, that's it for this 21st Lancers 1885 Cavalry Troopers saber. I hope you enjoyed this. I have more swords. I want to get them out and show them now that it's nice and warm out. But yeah, this is just a really, really cool sword. I will see you guys later. Have a good day.